Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by the Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
Yo, what is up, everybody? It is me, Gonzo, and tonight we are missing most of our crew tonight due to some particular personal reasons. However, the good news is I got the one and only Darren Doc Eisenhauer. Now, this is Doc's first time on the Blackout, and he is from Prospect Live and Dynasty Dingers Podcast. Doc, how are you today, my friend?
I'm good, man. I saw that it said viewer discretion is advised. Oh, man, that means we could do anything here, huh? There's no rules. Oh, man, I'm going to tell everyone how crappy the White Sox. It's like, why would you kick us? We know. We'll be better one day, and I actually think you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like it's starting to turn around for them. Mm-hmm. You know, April has been miserable the last 3 years, but it is what it is. But before we dive into the White Sox, you're a huge fantasy guy, but also you cover, I mean, because of fantasy, you cover MILB and everything along that, you know, track of content for your platform. But I want to first start with a nice topic starter with the rest of this 2025 season with the MLB. Who can you see coming up as a rookie and making an impact than the guys that already have like a Jacob Wilson? But go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking broad fantasy, anyone, not just White Sox, I mean, one of the first names that comes to mind is Bryce Eldridge of the San Francisco Giants. This guy, I mean, I think he's still 20 years old. When he was drafted, he was 18 or 19. And goodness gracious, he looked like a lumberjack. This guy's 6'7". Like 230, I believe. He's just a monster of, again, I have a hard time calling him a kid. You hear him talk too. And the whole way up to the minors, there was nothing patient. There's nothing patient about him in interviews, which is something people don't really maybe always listen to. It's just how the player talks. Maybe, I mean, it's a window into who they are, right? And so it wasn't this cope either of like, no, I need to be there right now in the bigs. He was just like, no, I'm going to go to the bigs. So no, I don't actually really want to spend any amount of time more than I have to in the minor leagues. No offense to my team. I was like, okay. And they asked him, how do you think about, he was going to be a two-way guy. They said when they drafted him, they said, we're going to make you a two-way guy. And so then MLB Network asked him, well, how do you feel about getting just like told you're going to be a batter? Was that a question or a conversation? Which gives him an out. And Eldridge turned around and said, oh, it wasn't really a conversation. I wish it was. He just says it. But I'm being more of a jerk than he was. He was just matter of fact, just an alpha dog. So this guy can come up here and like one day, he can't say this about many guys, have 40 home run power. So Eldridge would be one, and then shorter answers would be Samuel Basallo with the Orioles is an absolute unit. JJ Weatherholt with the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, these guys are going to be all three of these guys, barring injury, should be up by the end of 2025. And I wouldn't rule out, I mean, talking about the pitchers, I'd say Quinn Matthews is showing some life with the Cardinals. If they want to be serious and they want to make the playoffs and go deep, then they're going to bring them up in some capacity. And then, maybe I'd throw out there, I'm just going to look at my fan. I got Christian Moore of the Angels. People kind of forgetting about him after his hot start last year. He's got some roughness to his game. He swings a lot, but he's kind of like Yasiel Puig, if you remember him. Like when he connects, he can really connect. So it's the Los Angeles Angels. They, you never know what they're going to do. They can bring a guy up from, as an 18-year-old, and you wouldn't be that surprised.
I was really hoping you weren't going to say Bryce, because that was the guy that was my biased one from my fantasy standpoint. But as I'm like looking at the list, I'm like, I feel like Roman Anthony would be an obvious one for the Red Sox, but he's already getting the flout, all over social
media. He'll be up by the end of June, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
But even like a Painter for that Phillies rotation.
Yeah.
Because they already brought up Mick Abel. For a deep run in the playoffs, we'll see how many innings they can get down the stretch from these rookies. But that's a solid rotation.
That's not even debatable. Yeah. I guess I skipped over it. Like the guys I said weren't necessarily deep plays or anything like that, but maybe my brain just defaults to that because Andrew Painter, he's still my number one pitching prospect in baseball. And I know Noah Schultz is probably a popular name in Chicago, but I got to give it to Painter. The kid has just a deep arsenal. He's got the frame you want. They're not going to push him more. They know they're going to make playoffs, most likely. So they're going to, I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting starts, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they bring him in like Adam Wainwright by the playoffs if they have to, where I don't know if anyone remembers this, but back, I think it was 2007 on the World Series run, you had, I think it was rookie Adam Wainwright closing out games in the World Series. So you can get old school like that. We'll see what happens with Painter, but he's a stud. He could be the next Skeens. There's not a lot of Skeens out there, but if there's anyone who can have that kind of impact, it's a guy like Andrew Painter or Yuri Perez. Maybe one day Noah Schultz, but we'll see.
Yeah, and even for Seattle, we all know how great that rotation is, and for them to compete in that division, they're going to need some bats, and if that's acquired at the deadline or brought up, like they just brought up, was it Cole Young, was it?
Yeah.
But you still have, Cole Emerson, you still have Lazardo, gosh, now I'm blanking on the name.
Montez.
Yeah, I wonder how close
so
they
Cole
are.
Young, so those are sorry, I overlapped on you there, my bad.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say that Montez and Emerson, those are they need more polish, especially Emerson. It's funny. Emerson needs more power. Montez, you just want to, he's developing his approach. It's getting better. You just don't want him to revert to old ways and have, just if it was with the Angels, I think that Montez would probably not make it in the big league, Sorry, I keep on beating up on the Angels, but they just don't care about patience, which is pretty important with some prospects. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that today with a guy named Colson Montgomery. He's not all prospects develop the same.
Yeah, and even I'll say one last one. And I'm more of a pitching mindset. I know that we barely know of each other too much, but you'll get that out of me as I go on. But I'd be interested, even the A's with the start that they got off to, even if they bring up another arm like, Gage Jump, maybe. I know he's in Double-A, but, I don't know how their system, if they like to go out of Triple-A or come out of Double-A. But he's an arm that I'd be interested in if they do that this season versus next year. But, they're on the cusp too, and I didn't expect that out of that roster with all the controversy with Vegas going into the season. So, that'd be good.
Sorry, what you're going to have to look out for with Gage Jump is that jump to AAA, because where they play? It's the PCL.
Yeah.
So this is something where someone we didn't even mention, but Jordan Lawler, who's what is going on here? Is the same thing as Kobe Mayo, just not getting consistent opportunity, but also not doing a ton with it when he has it. And we have to start wondering, is Jordan Lawler a PCL king, basically? Is he inflated down there and he gets up, from these higher elevations and so forth in the PCL, and he gets up to major leagues? It's just so different. And you got to look out for that with Gage Jump. There may be, for fantasy purposes, he's likely to struggle at AAA. And so if that happens, probably a nice little buy low opportunity for fantasy. And you got to think about that, though, with Sacramento having a little baby ballpark. It's helping guys like Jacob Wilson tap into power that, frankly, he probably doesn't really have that much. He's got some more power than we thought, but he doesn't have as much. I think the park is really helping, and it's gonna. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not helping the pitching in Oakland, or sorry, in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So look out for that.
No, I like that that highlight there for me, because it's very similar to the White Sox. Because for me as a fan, I'd rather our arms come right from AA to the MLB, just because of how much of a boombox it is down in AAA in Charlotte. But for the hitters, by all means, go all the way from low A all the way through to AAA. But it's not like that for every organization, that's for sure. But yeah, let's get on my White Sox. Let's start in the MLB. I want to hear where your thoughts are at the moment, because they finally brought up Kyle Teel, and that's a catching battle between Cuero and Teel. So I want to see what your perspective is of those two, and how do you think that plays out?
So yeah, I found that, I think the whole fantasy world found that interesting, and I'd love some insight from you after my spiel here is done. But I always viewed Kyle Teel as in Boston, I viewed him as a Jason Varitek type. Like, this guy's gonna just be kind of a character guy, solid behind the plate, good counting stats, maybe more of an 18 to 20 home run guy, which is actually fine. We love to dream about 30 to 40. No, first of all, barely anyone ever hits 40. It's yeah. And so with Teel, yeah, probably more of that 18 to 20 guy, which is solid. It's like an Alec Burleson type. It gets the job done. And then knows how to take a walk, though, which, as we know, if you've seen the movie Moneyball, what does he do? He gets on base. So if this guy's a good defensive catcher, gets on base, has some pop, it's no wonder you're seeing already. It's only been a couple games. I didn't see how today's game played out. Maybe I should dig into that. Y'all probably play today. But you're laughing, so I don't know what kind of laugh that is. But okay, without looking at it, I'll tell you that the first two games, it was catcher, then DH. They immediately found at bats for Teel, whereas with Cuero, they've been letting him ride pine. It's, again, small sample, but tells you a little bit. And I am curious, because I've heard in the past that maybe Cuero wasn't as sharp with defense. So my gut has always been Teel's catcher. Cuero's going to have to figure it out as a DH or first baseman, which does have me asking questions about his future in terms of, our team's going to really want a guy who, again, is probably more of a 15 to 20 home run bat at best. Can get on base, can get the ball, but does he have enough authority with that bat to really stick around as anything other than a backup catcher or a 1B catcher?
And if OJ was on right now, he'd be telling you that Cuero's the better defensive catcher. Okay. But he has a lot of experience seeing him because he's from Venezuela. But and OJ runs the Team Venezuela in the front office right now, so he sees a lot of these guys in those countries. But to answer, I'm glad you jumped on that and you saw that right away in that small sample size, because I've been all over Twitter saying, well, first off, let me backtrack a little bit, because when the Crochet deal went through, one of the first things that the GM brought up and Chris Getz was the versatility of Kyle Teel from college. But through the system in Boston, he spent all those reps at catcher. So when he brought up versatility, I thought for sure that at least in AAA that they're going to give him some secondary reps in either left field, because that's where he had those versatility, was the outfield, or even first base, because we know how much of a need is there right now. And then right before they called him up, within the 2 days before that, he was taking some practice reps during, ground balls at first base. So I personally would have, because I've heard the conversation is he's going to be catching in DH mostly, even with how young he is. But me, I was so, I don't want to say flustered, but hearing that versatility, I was really hoping that he was going to get some pro reps and some secondary spots so he can get assorted before he comes up to the big leagues. But that didn't happen. So I don't know how that's going to pan out, but I was really hoping to see it, like I said, in pro ball first. That, because I don't want them to force him this young to be okay, you're just going to be catching in DH. With how young he is and with how many holes there is, I was hoping that, he can at least try left field and first base when he's not catching, because we know, like you said, Cuero is going to be in the pine or DHing. But, it's definitely an interesting topic, and especially since you saw it right off the bat. So, with that
3
being
straight
said,
starts for Teel.
yeah. With that being said, I'll transition to a guy who might even have representation, probably not as a starter, but maybe coming off the bench at second base, Chase Mroth. Personally, I think in the long term, and I struggle with this because he's had quite a start as a rookie with his stint so far, but I always thought he was going to be like a utility guy, but he's making me like question if he can even be an everyday second baseman going forward. And I think he's proving himself right now. What's your thoughts on him so far?
I haven't got to see his defense. I know he's, he plays a lot of positions from what I can tell. But I know from an offensive perspective, first of all, the power is surprising, probably not sustainable, would be my guess. But if he can get up to 10 home runs, you'd be like, okay, I didn't see that coming. Nice. We'll take it. He's stealing some bags, which is useful. And I want to see how many. I'm big on caught. So he's got caught 3 times. We'll see if that keeps up, because eventually that can kill momentum and be a problem if you're running too much and not being precise about it. But what you got to really love about him, something I like to look at, is contact rates, contact percentage. And so, I'm old school, but I do find that this metric is pretty nice. You don't always have to have great contact skills, but you have to hit the ball really hard if you don't. And he doesn't hit the ball hard at all. So it's good that he has some of the best contact numbers I've seen. He's 90% contact rate. He was 97.4% zone contact rate. The ball's in the zone, and he swung the bat. He's not going to miss. He's going to make contact with the ball for better or for worse. And it's been for better. I mean, you look at his surface stats, 300. It used to be you hit 300 in the major leagues. That was it. End of the conversation. The guy's a stud. Now you got to have all the metrics. You got to do this. You got to do that. But still, I mean, it doesn't. I think it still doesn't really matter if you can hover around the 300 mark and have a 386 OBP. I mean, both of those you would think aren't sustainable, but he's looking like a real guy. Ross Jensen, who founded Scout the Stat Line and actually helped bring me over to, we're all kind of integrating with Prospects Live. He's a big Chase Mroth guy. I'm seeing he's 5'10" here. I thought he was 5'8". Oh, well, that's even better. Got a couple inches, I guess. But yeah, I'm looking at his Savant page now. He's squaring up the ball like crazy. Yeah, just really, what? His average EVs are up to 88.5, which I thought he was down like real low. But that's fine. That's acceptable. If he keeps doing that with these contact rates, it's like 10 home runs, man. This could be a real interesting guy. And I think it's not crazy at all. Either he's your long-term second baseman or he's like able to shift around with injuries. If you end up having another second baseman coming up that you want to get in there, he could probably shift over to another position, or he could become a super utility guy to the point where he's basically a starter.
Yeah, no, and I know in Boston he was even playing third base, but I think in the long term in the MLB he'll probably be at second, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I am like you. I'm definitely more old school, but analytics play a role, especially as we go more into this modern era. So there are things that stick out and are important, and I'm glad that you highlighted some of those. I think that's it for the MLB at the moment, for guys that are here. So I'm going to go to Charlotte really quick because there's one guy I want to bring up. That's Colson Montgomery. Honestly, when they drafted him, I wasn't sure if maybe shortstop was going to be, ideally where he's going to stick at, but he had a hell of a first year in 23, and then it's just been downhill ever since with some tweaks that they made after that season. And he actually, just came back from a little, I want to say timeout in Arizona, but
we'll call it a reset. A reset's nice.
A nice little reset with our hitting coordinator. And he's looking good coming back from that reset. But I'm sure you're looking at the Savant right now. So I would love, just for his sake, because I hate to, talk negative about prospects, but I hope for his sake that he does make it to Chicago at some point. Being a highly touted first rounder, but I don't foresee him in this core going forward. But who knows, man? Who knows? What's your thoughts on Colson?
I was rooting for what's this BS? I could have sworn it says here on his. So I know he's from Indiana, and I was rooting for him because I kind of feel like Indiana's my home. But I used to say I could have sworn Jasper, Indiana was where he's from. Now it's saying somewhere else. That's something for me to look at my own time. A little bit of like a map autist, a little bit of a quirk there. So interesting. While so Colson Montgomery, for you look at these numbers, I gave you numbers. Again, I don't know how much of your audience is into like, I don't go actually super. Folks, there are real geeky metrics out there. I don't like to get too deep in the weeds. Contact and zone contact is like when you swing the bat, do you touch the ball? And then zone contact is when it's in the strike zone. Balls you're supposed to make contact on. And so if you picked up on the last one, folks, Chase Mroth, they're kind of close, both really elite numbers, 90, 95. This one's different. So it's like 73% in AAA right now, contact. If you're 70%, if you're below 70, you better be Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge can get away with that. Nolan Gorman's like 60 to 65. That's the kind of thing you're looking at. So, he's 73 there, but 88% in the zone. So that's interesting. That's like a really good number in the zone. So there's something, let me just tell you, the geek stats say he's all right. And then you look at, he's hitting the ball pretty hard. He's hitting the ball way harder this year on average in AAA than he was last year. And, there's things that you can look for here. And I don't want to get everyone too excited, but one of the reasons I started buying in on Colson Montgomery was when I found out he was a multi-sport athlete. Like basketball, I think might have been his main sport. It was a pretty big thing. And that reminded me of someone else, another young man from Middle America, a little further south. His name's Gunnar Henderson. And so he was just more raw, right? He wasn't like necessarily super elite right away. But then when he figured it out, when he clicked, he put enough time into ball. Obviously, now he's Gunnar Henderson, right? So the Gunnar Henderson. So I'm looking at his games just to put some surface numbers, the real non-geek numbers here. Since he came back from his reset, he's batting .276 with a .382 on base percentage. You'll love to see that. 4 home runs. This is better. This is better. And so personally, I've been trying to get a little in fantasy deep leagues. I'm buying shares. I wouldn't rule him out. How old is he? He is 23. So, and that's the age where you're like, I don't know. He's starting to get 24, 25. Then you're like, I don't know. Like 23 is fine. He's taking his time. Not everyone's the same. Again, he's a multi-sport athlete. I'm sure there's a lot of kids coming straight out of high school through high school where it was like once they figured it out. We actually had Connor Griffin from the Pirates. We had his dad on the show. And we asked him, like, did you want him to keep playing other sports? And everyone's got their own choices, right? And clearly with Colson, he wanted to do both. And that probably cost him some polish and maybe, might make him take a little bit longer than these kids that stuck with baseball from 12 on.
Yeah, before we go on to AA, I do want to recommend to my crowd, check the Dynasty Dingers podcast because they did have his dad, Connor Griffin, on. That was an excellent interview, by the way. I did listen to that when I was at work. So good job by you. Hell of an interview.
Thank you.
There's now before I go to the arms, there's one hitter that shocked me. Well, last year he shocked me. But this year now he's in AA and he's on fire. And you can check out the Savant as well. But Ryan Galaney, he's a corner guy, first and third. This year more so first base. But that's a guy I know in the chat. We got Joe in the chat asking the question about Elko. And this is a guy, Galaney, that I can very well see, for sure in spring training coming, or, in 2026. I can see him in camp and maybe pushing that roster. But I think with the control side of it, they'll probably keep him, probably till May. But that's a guy maybe within the next year, you could probably see him possibly, being competitive and pushing, if Vargas stays at first base and Elko being there. That's a neat, that's a whole. I don't think Galaney in the long run is going to be the guy starting every day, but I think that's a guy that will bring competition. So, Doc, that's a guy, at least you probably have seen him, but definitely a good guy to have in the queue for those 30-man leagues that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, also good shout out to fast 5-second shout out to Vargas though, man. He used to be a top prospect. They said, oh, he'll be competing for batting titles one day, and everyone forgot about him once he left Los Angeles and all the media. So Galaney, yeah, not someone who's actually super on my radar. And as we go deeper, just not that deep. There'll be some guys who I'm just like, I'm looking at the stats as opposed to necessarily using my eyes, which is not always the best. But Galaney, nice big body. This is the guy you're talking about. From Covington, Louisiana. I learned how to ride horses a little bit north of there. Theo Vaughn, the comedian from that same town. So that's cool. But yeah, Galaney, big body. He's almost 25 years old. That's what we're talking about, right? Ooh, is this like? But so the flip side of that is when those guys come up, they can often be way more polished. And so this is a good flag. And I'm sure people who are listening to your show know all about him. But, again, like I'm just going to be honest, guys. White Sox have a bad rap right now in the prospect development community, especially hitters. They don't want any of them. And, we'll talk about him later. But I with Caleb Bonham, no one wanted to talk about him. We'll talk about that later. But
he's coming up.
I'm thinking, and I've been pushing this for like probably at least a year now, is that at the very least, the White Sox arms are very much worth pursuing. Y'all are just doing it right down there. So Galaney though, you're going to see a lot of White Sox hitters in your fantasy leagues, unless you're playing with a bunch of White Sox fans. You're going to see them really go under the radar.
Yeah. And rightfully so. That's kind of the guys that I would just kind of throw out there for keep an eye on him. But I don't think he's going to be, probably a guy that would be on the bench if he does
Dude,
make it.
Ryan Galaney is owned in none of my leagues. I play in, and brother in Christ, I swear, I play in a league with 30 teams. I played a few 30-teamer leagues. And none of them is you rostered, and one of them is prospects only. Like you can only roster prospects, and then like when they graduate, they're on your team for life. So yeah, it's Sunday night. You told me just in time. I'm gonna throw an ad and Ryan Galaney.
But he brought up the arms, and that's where we're here, or at least talking in Double-A. You got Noah Schultz, you've got Hagen Smith, and you have Grant Taylor. Now Noah Schultz, he's probably one of my favorites. I had him as the top prospect before the Crochet trade. Because then I put Montgomery above him. That was a bold of me to do, but I just like the projection more for it. But Noah Schultz, he was killing it last year. Then as they're managing his workload in Double-A, he's starting to get have some challenges there in 51 innings with the 1.6 WHIP and the 3.7 ERA. But talking to a close source to him, he sounds like the kid is just grinding through it, and he's healthy, and that's the most important part for his age and as a lefty with the velocity he has. I'm still really high on him. Hagen Smith, there were some rumors coming out that they were a little worried about the arm recently, so that's why he went to Arizona. And then Grant Taylor, same thing. There was a little worry, so they moved him to the bullpen, because he only pitched, I think it was 17, 19 innings last year before injury. But Brian Bannister, one of the team executives came out recently in an interview and giving him high praise, but he's saying, hey, whether he's a starter or a closer in the future, he's one of the best arms he's ever seen. And that says a lot with the guys that he's developed in his past. So I'm one of those guys too, where I'm like, you know what, I'm cool with him going into the bullpen for now if they're managing his innings, because I trust the Sox with developing arms. So I think that's a three-headed monster in the future. And again, I'm more the guy like let him have that starting role and then fail into a pen arm with how young and talented those arms are. What's your thoughts on the three of them?
So Schultz, yeah, it's interesting with. But mostly Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith. There's been some some deflation of the hype a little bit. I was a rare person who came out and said Hagen Smith, I like him more than Chase Burns. It's not really aging well. Burns looks amazing, but I would say it's not like Hagen Smith looks unfixable or anything insane like that, or like something seriously wrong. Like he's missing bats. Yeah, the walks have been an issue. That's for sure. But he's got the size. He's a lefty. and he's in again like a great pitching org. So versus Burns, he could be great, and maybe he'll cut through it, but I don't like going for pitchers who their home is Great American Ballpark. So that was really the decider for me.
And that I was going to add, in that draft, I was actually a Burns guy, whereas OJ was Smith. But even though I had those same concerns as you with Chase, but I just felt like the repertoire was just that much better, and it looks good now. But even on the Sox side of it, I was like, you know what? With the hitters that were on the board still at that range, I was kind of hoping for either Weatherhall or Connor Griffin at the time. And then Keggs is coming out of nowhere too. So it is what it is. Like at the end of the day, they went with the safe route with what they knew that they can develop. And I don't blame them for that, but it looks rough at the moment, but we'll just have to wait and see. But go ahead.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're looking at here's the thing. Here's why I come away from metrics. And by the way, there is no savant once you're out of the major leagues. There's a fan. There's these pages you can find. It's not as comprehensive, but and it gets the deeper you go away from below AAA, it gets even harder to find data. But here's what I say about pitchers, and people will actually get mad at me when the geeks in the industry will get mad at me when I say the only thing that matters about being a pitcher, the pitcher's only job is to prevent runs. And that shouldn't be an offensive thing to say. We've lost the plot a little bit. It doesn't matter. Hey, do you want Miles Michaelis out there grinding and limiting a team to when he's hot, 3 runs or less and going 6 innings every day, saving your bullpen, and if your bats are anywhere decent, probably winning you games, helping you win games? Or do you want this guy, who's electric, but like Joe Boyle or something like that, but he can't find the strike zone and he's just kind of a mess? Or even upside of Tyler Glasnow, of course, you probably still want to take the gamble on Glasnow over Michaelis. But point is, at what point, if you're not pitching or if you can't find the strike zone, what's your purpose, right? So I'd look at Hagen Smith and say, what's he done well? It's 2.10 ERA. That's good. That's really good. He's been, despite walking 7 guys per 9, he's kept runs off the board. And so maybe that's shows, I haven't seen all his games or anything like that, but maybe that shows some toughness, some grit to get through those outings. And Grant Taylor, we haven't really talked about him, but yeah, he's looking great. His numbers are looking great. Mm-hmm. I definitely have called that out. He's got great talent, but it's not even necessarily it's not even a problem necessarily. It's just a reality of, okay, he's 23 and the most innings he's pitched is 31, and that was 3 years ago. So at some point, he needs to get close to 100 this year, or at least he needs to get to 80 this year, to have a consideration as a starter in the near future. And again, not the end of the world. The way that White Sox are producing starters, it's how often do teams start complaining? Gosh, our bullpen stinks. We just need to go out there and get one of those elite closers. And it's there's not a ton. It costs an arm and a leg in real baseball. So from a real baseball perspective, you have this outstanding staff developed in a year or 2 or 3, just crushing it. You want people to be able to close the game out and be intimidating on the mound. And frankly, Grant Taylor, if you condense his stuff to small stints, he can probably reach back and just pump it even better. He's probably holding back a little bit so he doesn't blow his arm out again. He's probably to some extent anyway. So I have many thoughts about these guys, and Noah Schultz. 6'10", just what is there to say about him? Hasn't been the best year so far, but he's a 6'10" lefty. He's got the stuff. He's only 21 years old. Hey, if in fantasy, if anyone's selling on him, I'll buy.
Yeah. No, you said it well for the arms there at AA, and for the sake of conversation at the moment, let's go down quickly through high and A ball. There's, 2 arms there in Winston-Salem. For your sake, I think you should keep an eye on, and I won't go too deep into them, but Adrian Batista, he's injured at the moment, but look up what he did as of last year, what he did. he's an interesting guy at 22 to keep an eye on. And then the lefty Christian Opar, what he did at Kannapolis to start the year and work his way up is really impressive. So those are two arms that I think could be back of the rotation arms in the future for the Sox, and grab your shares of them if you're able to in your leagues. As they go through the system. But I want to spend a little bit of more so the time left on this topic with the 4 bats that I think should be a part of that next core going forward. My top prospect was Braden Montgomery, and he had one hell of a start so far. He kind of cooled off a little bit, but he's starting to pick it up again. But even a guy that just they drafted him last year, I forgot what round, but he's just coming off injury. Sam Antonacci. Look up those stats too for me. But those are 2 in Winston that I'm keeping an eye on. And then Kannapolis is where you just a couple minutes ago was talking about with Caleb Bonham and George Wilcow, which George Wilcow, 19-year-old, going through the struggles right now. But with our intel from when Scott Podsednik was in spring training with the outfielders this spring, George Wilcow was his favorite outfielder, and that included Braden Montgomery in that mix. So that was an interesting perspective he came away with. And Caleb Bonham, actually, we just had Elijah on last week, but he's number 78 on their top 100. I'll let you, my friend, take it away.
Yeah, well, I gotta do a top 100 again, man. It's like life has been crazy. I moved across America. I'm just doing all these new things. It's a wild life. I got a new kid again. I got 2 kids now. Same wife. She's good. She's in the picture. Don't worry. But the and no baby mama. And so Antonacci, that's someone who's not on my radar. And I'm looking at his numbers, and he should be. In fact, the way he's playing, and he's 22, so he's not like an older guy. The contact numbers here look pretty solid. So I'm guessing, without even looking, that Antonacci is on people's radars right now. In fact, this is how we're gonna know. We're gonna do the same test as before. Yes, so he is owned in that crazy league. He's rostered in that crazy league. He is only 1% rostered in Fantrax overall. But in all my deep 30-teamers, yeah, everyone's got him. That's funny. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's just a step above, Then Kayla. But those look like, so basically, yeah. Just to translate all that geek talk, he's doing everything right. How big is he? Yeah, he's not a small guy. He's hitting like a small guy. He's got that speed. Not tons of power yet, but he's not striking out. He's taking walks, and he seems to. What does he play? What position?
He's in the infield. Hold up.
Yeah, he's playing third base, mostly third base. He played 1 game at shortstop for some reason, so that's probably not going to happen. It looks like he was second base last year. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But I mean, yeah, that's great. And he's got a left-handed bat. That could be fun. That's a name to jot down, and apparently not fast enough in some leagues. But Bonham, though, it's just I keep telling people I'm not a genius when it comes to some of these picks. I mean, you have to do a little bit of research.
Yeah, I mean, but Antonacci, he's a 5th round guy, so I just thought that was a nice gem in that draft last year. But go ahead on Bonham.
Yeah, Bonham. I saw this cold weather bat from Michigan, drafted the White Sox. Immediately, I'm like, yeah, he's not going to get the same love as even a Luke Dickerson, who I kind of put in the same boat. People were all down on the prep bats last year, like, oh, there's no high school bats. I'm like, there's going to be some. There's always some. Come on, right? Yeah. And so you look at the signing bonus. That's where I'm saying I'm not a genius. Just look at the numbers. What teams are putting money where their mouth is, and because that in MLB, that's what matters more. It doesn't matter the round. It matters how much you're getting paid, especially as a high schooler. And you can dig in the profile. And he was supposed to be power over hit profile. So meaning, this guy's going to probably have some issues with striking out and taking walks. Whoa. Now he's walking 19% of the time. That's crazy. It's an unbelievable walk rate. He's striking out at an acceptable rate. You look at his surface numbers, 280, 424 OBP. And he's got 5 home runs. And he's doing something else he wasn't really expected to do, which is run. 17 stolen bases in 48 games. Caleb Bonham, He has elevated himself. And in fact, he's more of a name right now than Luke Dickerson, who I mentioned before with the Nationals. Caleb Bonham, I haven't done my rankings. He's at low A, but I gotta say, he feels top 70. This could just be my gut. My gut says he's top 50. I think when I do him, if I get around him, I gotta do him soon because otherwise everyone's gonna figure out the Bonham story. And I think I'll have him as a top 50 guy, probably leading the industry on him because I don't see any reason to doubt this. Like there's a reason that they went after him. Good frame too, and he plays third base, shortstop. So it's gonna be valuable for fantasy. I got thoughts on George Volkov. They would have called him Volkov back in the homeland. You know that, right? Back in Poland. But he's just a kid. Just real quick with him, he just turned 19, so he's super raw.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of guy where I'm talking about Aaron Judge. So look at this. This is what you guys will love this. Geek stats. So he had no idea what was going on as a 17-year-old. 35% contact rate. I've never even seen one that low, but it gets good. So last year he goes up rookie ball complex. Now he's up to 46. Still terrible, but that's like a big improvement. But then he goes to low A, 57 at a higher level. Like now, okay, and now those are real. Like that's a real number. Still bad, but when you have that kind of freakish power, now we're talking. And this year he's up to 70% contact rate. And with that freakish kind of raw power, guys, that's exactly what you want to see. So I think even though the average, the surface numbers aren't necessarily where you want them to be right now, he's actually on the right track. You can see in his strikeout rate, he's 26% versus like 40 last year. He's just like, if you're in for strikeout percentage, if you're 30 or higher, you better be slugging the ball when you make contact. So he could actually be closer to 30, but under 30 at his age with that profile, yeah, man.
Yeah. And the fact, you had me worried a little bit early in the show because I didn't know where you were going to go, but I thought that you for sure was, loving that Bonham uprising. And really, I think Bonham and I brought up the lefty Christian Opar, but those two are having the best seasons in this system in the 2025 season. So I'm excited for both of them. And that wraps up our the White Sox minor league system. And again, I really hope that, Caleb, Bonham and Sam Antonacci, I hope both of them make, the MLB. Now, does Antonacci stay at third base? I know Bonham, when he was drafted, they thought he would be a third baseman, but he's been playing shortstop defensively for pro ball really well. And I'm interested to see if that, pans out to be, but otherwise that could be a third base battle there. And if that's the case, that, you want those battles, competition for the best guy to overcome it. So, especially for a White Sox team that lost 2 straight 100-loss seasons. So, Doc, that does it for, I don't have to put you through any more torture through their minor league system for hitters, at least. Let's talk about the MLB draft. I know it's early on. We're about a month out and the White Sox have the 10th selection. Before we get into choices, my perspective on this draft, let's just say I like last year's draft class a whole lot better, at least, the top 10 at least, or I should say the top 15. It was pretty deep last year. But this year for me, I feel like it's more weak. And unfortunately, with that historic season the Sox had, they're not picking one, because of the rule. They're at 10 and it sucks, but it is what it is. But I'm at that point where I think unfortunately, as much as I want a position player for the Sox, I feel like those pitching arms, those college arms at least, I think they're plenty in that range. And those, high school prep players that are in the, 5 to 10 range might be picked up, or the Sox might get lucky and they drop, and because of those arms being picked up further than anticipated. But I'm curious to see how this draft goes. And before we get into some names, is that where your perspective is at the moment?
I'm just so bad at Prospects Live. Hey folks, you want real good college analysis. These guys at Prospects Live, they're crushing it. Like tonight, they invited, hey, everyone, want to come and do like a 4-hour stream where we just watch college baseball? And I'm like, no, I have no time for that. What are you guys doing? And what I kind of do is I try my best a little bit more every year. Then the draft comes around, and I'm just like, I try to just take it all in. And by the offseason, I'm like, I know everything about these guys. And because frankly, I'm forced into it because we start doing 30-team first-year player drafts for fantasy. People will say, maybe I don't know if they say this very often, but I've heard it said that, my ranks are based on real life, not fantasy. And there's something to that for a Kyle Teel, especially, right? Or any catcher, really, or defensive-minded guy. Funny enough, that was like Jacob Wilson's thing. He's like, oh, he's a defensive first guy. Well, turns out he can do a little bit more for Sacramento out there. He's hitting like crazy. But when it comes to the upcoming draft class, I'm not there yet in terms of like knowing it inside and out. So this is not expert talk. Everything else you heard today, folks, was the most expert talk. Nothing I said was wrong and was only right. But now it's like maybe it'll be half the time I'll be wrong. You said you wanted to talk a little bit before we got into players. So maybe I'll let you dictate from here, but I do have a fun name that I could see falling back to you at 10, or maybe one y'all reach on that could be a lot of fun. You can talk about that now, or are you ready?
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I want to hear that name. Well, first off, let me guess the name that you think they'll reach on. Is it JoJo Parker?
No, I don't really see anyone putting this guy in their top 10 right now.
Okay.
In anyone's top 10.
I'll let you take it away then, because those are two surprises you got. They're probably going to hit me.
The one that might fall to you would just be like probably not likely, but could happen because anything can happen. Well, not anything, but something. It's within the realm of likelihood. Krutz Schoolcraft. You ever heard of this guy?
Yeah, and that's crazy because I feel like with each platform or publication that they have them, he's either really high or like even down in the 20s. So it's a crazy range.
Yeah. All it takes is like, because you'll see, and maybe they get him for like, they get him at a deal or something. There's all these little things that I'm not really an expert on, but I've seen these weird positions. People are, players climb or fall, and sometimes it's just about money. And I'll tell you something I do know about, that they do have deals. Like there are deals before the draft. So it's not necessarily like the NFL where teams are shocked. Like there is an idea of what's going on to some extent. And so Krutz Schoolcraft is just, it's the high schoolers. They're harder to predict. There's more risk. I didn't really finish that thought, I guess, earlier, but here's the deal with them, like a Bonham or a Schoolcraft maybe, is that, there's like less of a stage that they're playing on. Jack Caggs got famous. Paul Skeens got famous from being on ESPN or whatever, right, with all the college games they're playing. These high school kids are not on those levels, right? Like they just don't have that exposure. And so if they're not playing in a big market, like Bonham, for example, or Thomas White was the Marlins pitcher. Anyway, it's the whole thing. But Bonham, then you can get, in terms of like publicity, you can get discounts on these guys. In terms of fantasy drafts, you can get discounts. And Krutz Schoolcraft, this guy's 6'8", and he's a left-handed pitcher. Tell me if you've heard this one before, right? With the White Sox. And here's the fun thing: he actually hits too. And apparently, I don't want to shock you with this 6'8" monster. He's strong. And his name is Kurz, Krutz. Like he's the most Schoolcraft. Like what a awesome name. So he's projected to go maybe 15 to 20 or so. But with these prep kids, when, right now it's college season, their hype is high. Sometimes these college kids can get forgotten about a little bit. Again, they don't have the platform. So maybe, just maybe, a team like the White Sox who could use a young, high-ceiling bat to really take a shot on when their pitching is coming along so well, maybe this is the time, right, to go for your Connor Griffin and just and make a splash. So that's a wild card I'm throwing your way.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw some. I know we threw out the names last week, but we've heard a lot of rumors about the Oklahoma righty, Kason, Witherspoon, even some reports. This is even Cincinnati doesn't take him, but Texas A&M outfielder Jace Levietti, I've seen, the lefty should be in that range with Liam Doyle, the Tennessee left-hander. These next three guys that I'll bring up. So I really like, and JoJo Parker, I brought him up, but he's got that slot value that the guy that you brought up with Schoolcraft has as well. So I'll be interested to see if they do go prep, if it is between those two guys. But for the longest time, I know I DM'd you about him, but the Wake Forest shortstop, Merrick Houston, I know he had a slump, and before the slump, he was projected top 10, but then that slump, and it brought that value down, and he was able to bounce back. But I still, as far as college bats go, that's a guy in that range that I think should be in the conversation. And then the last guy I had on there was Arkansas shortstop. I don't know how you say it. It's Hawaiian, but is it Wahia Aloy? I don't even know how you say it, but it's a tough one. I'm bad with names, but
if you listen to Dynasty Dingers, we are bad with names. And I don't feel bad about it, brother. But man, it's hilarious, It's like I'm supposed to be like this multilingual dude. But we're gonna go up to these guys who are, especially from like South or Central America or the islands or something. Some guy who barely speaks English, or from Japan even. We're say, hey, can you say Kroot Skullcraft for me? Can you say, or how about we do on the Reds? There's this kid say Cole Schoenwetter, but it's like Schoenwetter. We should be saying it German. Everyone needs to be doing German pronunciations now. All the announcers have to be culturally sensitive to the German pronunciation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just messing around. La Violette. We gotta be more.
Just like Volkow or Volkow.
Yeah, Volkov. He's like, no, I like Volkow. I'm like, no, I have to be sensitive to you. You're Volkov. He's like, what?
Yeah.
We make jokes around here.
But I was looking at the because the White Sox, they jumped from 10 to, I think it's 44 in the second round. And you probably haven't gotten much into the, that range, but is there any other name that you'd be interested in?
Yeah. So I will there's a couple names real quick here. So first of all, Laviolette, I will say is that his name, Laviolette? There's a hockey guy named Laviolette. Anyway,
yeah.
It's he's powerful. He's 6'6", 230. This could be, it's looking probably like Schoolcraft is probably more likely to be a pitcher. So maybe it's not someone you need. Maybe it is a Laviolette, who is a hitter. He's there's some risk in the profile, but he knows how to take a walk. Maybe he's if you remember Brock Wilken, maybe one of those. He looks like his power kind of went down a little bit this year, but it seems like I'm seeing Jace go anywhere between like top 10 to like, I'm seeing a site here says could go, top 20 instead. It's like, I don't know. So it sounds like there's a good chance he could be there for you, which could be fun. I was going to say Seth Hernandez, he's someone who grabbed my eye as like this kid popping 100 in California. It's a prep right-hander, which people are like, oh, sometimes those guys will drop. And I'm like, why? Like if he's a good baseball player, if he's a pitcher, then he's a pitcher. I don't care which arm you throw with if you're electric. So we'll see. I've seen him projected here in 9th. So I don't think he's going to make it to 10, but he could. There's always, again, if you're projected to 9 by the experts, it's like, well, what's 10, right? Like it could definitely happen. And if you want like a couple deeper names for 44, one would be Nolan Schubert. And he's got like pretty significant power. Another again, I guess I got a plan for y'all. You guys need a power bat. And so 6'5", 223. It's just guys that I've flagged in some of my leagues. There's one league that I'm open universe with, and that's where it kind of forces me to get that's a league I guess I should stay in because it's forcing me to learn the college guys a year ahead. Again, by the fall, I know like deep guys, like I can call them out for you, but this one Schubert's pretty cool. He's going to be in the draft. Then last one would be Henry Ford, not the dead automaker. This would be Henry Ford out of Virginia, but there's a quirk here. So he's big, another big guy, but he's more of, I don't want to say he's Nolan Shanuel, but as of right now, like might be more of that where he's just really big and you're like, oh, but he hits amazing contact, like 350 or something like that batting average, but only 11 home runs this year. So you're kind of like, what's up with that? You think that would be more, and maybe he knows that because it sounds like he may be considering going back to school despite being draft eligible. So we'll see. If he goes, he'll go in that range probably, like late first, early second.
Yeah, if they do, even for pitching's sake, if they do flip a coin on a guy, I'm not sure if he's going to go maybe in the back half of the first round or early second round. But Jack Bauer, the lefty, he goes to the high school like on the town next to me, Lincoln Way East, and the kid I know talk with them hitting 103 as a lefty, but he actually backed out of Virginia because he had a full commitment there but he backed out because the coach left. So it's going to be interesting to see. I know like for slot value, it could be a conversation for him. But for him, from what I saw the videos, I think it's more so of a command thing, but he's got the velocity and the stuff. So that's a guy that I'd be interested in too. What was your thoughts? Did you have any? I know I saw your like eyes flicker there when I mentioned him. Were you interested?
Thank you for getting lost in my eyes. It's we all have a thing. No, it's just why is he not showing up here? Is his real name Jackson? No, his name's Jack Bauer, right? That's why I was laughing because I've heard of Jack Bauer, the prospect, but I was laughing because I also know that he is Kiefer Sutherland's character from the show 24. It's like he's that badass agent, not Asian. He's very white. But I'm weirded out. So sorry, this is a high school guy you said, right?
Yeah, he's a high school.
Yeah. So this shows you that where I'm starting to fade away from knowledge, and I guarantee you, even by the draft, I'll be like, oh, of course, I know everything about Jack Bauer, because I have to cram for the exam. Yeah, if you're touching 100, got a slider, changeup. I mean, it's more than just a 2-pitch guy. It sounds like. So that's what I mean. I look at the basics, and I just cut away from him, but I should have actually gone back to see how big he is. 6'3", 190 as a high schooler, projectable frame, lefty. Yeah, no. I mean, that's the thing. Like, so I can just see all those things right there. Be like, yep, I'm interested in, of course. Trust. You have to go off of scouts. It's kind of funny though, right? This is the other issue, is that you have to learn how to read between either watch tape, listen to interviews, or crunch the data yourself, or just read between the lines on these scouting reports, because the scouting reports pre-draft, everyone is amazing. No one's bad. Everyone could be the next Corey Seager if you play shortstop and have any amounts of power, right? Like so many Corey Seager comps. It's very funny. I remember Colson Montgomery got that. Everyone if you're good enough and you're big enough at shortstop, you're Corey Seager now. But then, the reality is like the vast majority of prospects aren't going to last in Major League Baseball. Certainly the number of draftees, right? So it's tough. It's a tough game. So you got to learn how to read between the lines. And of course, with a podcast like this, or any kind of portion of Twitter X, where it's just White Sox only or whatever team only, can get very tunnel. You get some tunnel vision, and you think this guy's gonna be the next big thing. And for all of those like 3 big pitchers at AA right now, one of them at least is probably not gonna make it, which is crazy, right? Because right now it seems like of course they will, in their own little ways. And then some people have different paths. And just to like finish this crazy rant, it's like then they have unique paths. Like Jackson Jobe in Detroit goes up. He's a flamethrower. Well, now he's just like doing what like 8K per 9. Like he's doing okay. He's hurt now, but like you got some guys will just become different pitchers at the major league level or different players. So it'll be interesting to see. It's fun. And again, like you said earlier, you root for all these kids because they're trying to make a dream work, right? They don't have the millions yet, and they may never get the millions other than their signing bonus. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You said it best. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time, my man. We covered the White Sox farm system. We talked about some MLB draft. We got to have you on again, hopefully after the draft sometime later in the season, just to kind of, get a little recap and see how things went. But it was nice to pop your cherry on the Blackout. So that does it for today's episode. Thank you everyone in the chat for tuning in and listening to the Blackout.
Drew Thorpe, don't give up.